Hello everyone, today we are in the second episode of Season 2 of the Data Roll podcast. It's the first episode with two guests at once, the perfect duo. So Maciej Makuszewski, head of iGaming, and Luka Oblak, head of product design at Promatic Group. And today we'll be discussing game design and balancing out engagement and player protection. So guys, welcome, and let's start with the intro. Maciej, a few words about yourself, and Luka.
Hi everyone, Maciej Makuszewski here. I represent Promatic, the online gaming side, because the company actually does both online and land-based gaming. So we are also in the business of manufacturing slots, like the slot cabinets. But I'm guessing we're here to talk about more about the online part, or although maybe not only. And I have the privilege to lead the commercial side of the online gaming. So that. Thanks for the invitation, by the way.
Hey guys, so my name is Luka Oblak. I'm with Promatic Group for 5 years now. I'm in charge of product development, which means anything from designing games, math, sound, videos, and so on. Those guys are all my team. And then the software development is a different team, but obviously we need to kind of work together to get the final product first developed, obviously, and then also pushed out with given to commercial part of the company and so on, so they can do their thing, how companies work. So everybody does their part, and that's that. That's mostly what I do.
Perfect. And just to give a little bit of context to our audience, so the three of us, we met during the European Gaming Congress last year in October in Warsaw. And I remember listening to both of you, Luka and Maciej, about the interesting keynote you made about responsible gaming considerations and how it does influence the process of the slot game production. And you were very vocal about the recent game that was released that was making very easy to remember a reference to a popular meme in Poland about a specific furry animal, Ale Fajny Bober. And I would be very keen that you tell us a little bit more about this case to our audience.
I guess that's not only Poland, right? Like the entire Slavic speaking, and maybe not even only that, right? Area in Europe. Like if you go to Czech Republic or to Slovakia, and recently I checked into a hotel in Prague, and believe me, those guys have thousands of reasons to know and to kind of connect with Polish people. But the first thing the receptionist asked me, "Oh, Polak, Bober." So
Amazing.
And I didn't even have to tell him that we have Ale Fajny Bober game. So, it's not only Poland.
A very easy association, and especially even in Hungary, the second word, which is part of this expression, is also used. What I learned when living in Budapest, that actually they have the same K word. So basically all Eastern Europe is connected this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way this started is there was this video of this guy chasing a bobber or beaver around some smaller town, I guess. And from that, we also had some company event or party, and we started kind of like making fun of this and so on. And from that, we started thinking, hey, how could we turn this into a game? Because from marketing perspective, you already have a lot of help, especially. And I don't know, I haven't seen it, if there are some other cases where something viral turned into a game. I know, you have games from movie series, from famous people, from historic event and so on, but I don't know I've seen one made from basically a meme or a viral meme video or something like that. And connecting to the point that you guys said, well, sure, we actually did an investigation of where the K word, as we call it in Europe, like the F word in the English language, is used. And yeah, it's all Slavic countries. But also, I was in Switzerland 3 weeks ago, and you have this tourist town where they sell shirts for skiing and so on. And a few of them actually had bobber on it, well, a beaver with different poses, with beer, with snowboard, and so on. So yeah, I guess it's getting wider. I guess so to speak, the stupidest things come out faster or something like that in any culture.
Yes. So just moving along, right? So we had this internal event at the company. And actually, I remember that Luka and his team during this event, they started drafting something. That was really crazy. We were sitting around some kind of a bonfire and drinking beer and watching them come up with game ideas. So that was really fascinating to watch. But what it did to the company was that it became like a company mascot. So recently when we went to our ICE gaming show, right, first time in Barcelona. So we had like all of those other, that was really funny. We had all of these other company mascots. Like one company had a company mascot of a giant Ronaldinho, you know, the football player. So this mascot came in, and especially from the other part of the hall, which is like 1,000 meters away, to have a photo with Ale Fajny Bober, the huge mascot of ours. So it basically kind of, I wouldn't jump into saying that it transformed the company culture, but it definitely added some spice into it, you know? It was a really fun story. And what actually happened because not many people outside Poland know this, but what happened during the launch of the actual Ale Fajny Bober game on the only legal online casino in Poland was that around this time when this game was released, there was, for some reason, I don't remember even why, there was a huge kind of reactivation of Bober memes in the public space because of something that some politician said.
It was because there was this, flooding in Poland.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the beavers, it wasn't exactly that time, but then the beavers were kind of, obstructing or blocking the water flows. And it actually created damage. So I think it was the prime minister basically declared war on Bober in Poland, right? At the same week we had scheduled that launch. So it was kind of a lucky coincidence.
Perfect timing. Wow.
Yeah, it was a coincidence. Contrary to what some people may think, it was a coincidence because we had it planned for like 6 weeks or so. But yeah, it was really funny, And we were just sitting around. I remember sitting around somewhere in, I think it was Lisbon or somewhere, and just watching all the news from Poland come. And this game was about to be released in 2 days, and we were like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen? Is it going to be like, another viral thing?" Yeah.
I can totally imagine that it would be a huge conspiracy theory to say that you guys planted the flood and the beaver attack.
That would be complicated, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. So anyways, during the creation of this game, why we're here and how this speech happened, we had a lot of discussions about, in the context of, the hot topic of responsibility in gaming. And discussions were like in no other game case, I guess, We were discussing things like, does it look appealing to children? Does it look too sweet? Does it look too cartoony, etc.? Should it be more angry, just, not to be very mascot-like, So those were the things that we were playing around with because of the fact that the primary customer for this game is Polish State Monopoly, a company that, like, among the millions of other things that they have to say about themselves, definitely responsible gaming will be one of them, right? So.
And are there any other special aspects that you were taking into consideration within this responsible gaming sphere when you were designing the game, and how to actually avoid this conflict between those, on one side, the business goals, and then all those ethical considerations and regulatory and so on?
Well, you start to develop it to be all it can be. Then you kind of take a look and where you need to kind of tone it down a little bit. So yeah, it was, I could say that the face of the first version of the Bober was maybe a bit happier, whereas now it's kind of a little bit more scary. So it's, also appealing to children because you give them nice cartoons, not the scary ones, usually. Also, the language, the first vocals we recorded were 1-to-1 with the original video. But then you have these internal discussions or small fights with Maciej. Like, no, this, no, with this, cannot do that.
Profanity, yeah?
Exactly. But I mean, why not? You cannot play if you're not 18 years old. You cannot watch certain movies or contents if you're not 18 years old. You cannot, in Europe at least, drink and so on if you're not 18 years old. But for gaming, you need to treat it like a kindergarten almost. I mean, in reverse, like not like a kindergarten, but don't say anything bad. It needs to be really soft and so on. So this was, to me, not really a challenge, maybe difficult to accept, because why not? Like, let's do something, let's make some noise, basically. So yeah, that was the first version. I remember having such discussions. And why not this? Why not? We had this rubber duck, which to us it was very funny, very comical, but it could also be a children's toy, and you need to think about this and so on. So yeah, there were some changes done while we were still trying to keep it together. And that was like the first of those. And now we are planning to also use those vocal. We call it like the Bober explicit, where you used to have these old rap CDs where it was explicit lyrics, the sticker on them. So we will kind of going in that direction. Maybe do this on some smaller market to see what happens, because yeah, it's difficult to really risk this on big market. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, the game is actually, I mentioned the Czechs. The game is actually coming to Czech Republic pretty soon. And it was also a very interesting conversation with the certification lab, because we asked them a question. Okay, so what about the Polish F word and the Czech F word, and what about all these curse words in if we wanted to use them in the game? And they said, first of all, we've never had a question like this, so so it's interesting, so we need to double check. And they went back to us and they said, we don't think anyone really thought about it in the regulation. It's like, it's not in the regulations, so in theory you should be able to do whatever you like with the sounds, right? What the regulators mostly care about is whether the game is RNG based, whether the RNG works properly, the RTP is okay, math is good, etc., etc., whether the functionalities are according to the instructions, but not whether the sounds are this or that, right? So we're gonna try to keep the original flavor of the foul language of the Bober movie and see what happens.
Exactly. And especially, I like the point that you guys are making, that for certain reasons, you have to make more attention than in a potentially different setting where you would be, and you might have less restrictions and less, how to call it, eyes watching and observing every single step with the greatest care, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to where we met, actually, Maciej has this in presentation. I think he can tell it better. But how much gambling, not just gaming, gambling stuff was used in cartoons for children, 4 or 5-year-old children? I think Maciej has better knowledge what he investigated.
Yeah. So I watch these movies because I have 2 kids. They're 8 and 10, and I'm actually at every premiere of a major, cartoon movie. And I think I was watching Hotel Transylvania on Netflix, and I was like, what's going on there, And it's not like, because in some cartoons, you will have characters playing cards, not for money, but basically playing cards for something, right? But in this cartoon, Hotel Transylvania, they're walking into a proper casino. There are like hundreds of slot machines around. There's a craps table, there's a roulette, there are card games all around, and there are characters playing slots. And you're like taking a look at the PGI, and it's at 4+ or something like this. So it's like, okay, on the one hand, we have all these rules and restrictions that say gambling. In Poland, for example, right? We have a total ban on gambling advertising. Obviously, this can be circumvented in many ways. But let's say we stick to the rule of law as it is written. So we have 100% ban on gambling advertising. And I remember from back in the day at Totalizator Sportowy, because I used to work there, and we were about to launch the new vertical, so Lotto Online and online casino, and we were trying to interpret what it actually meant, like, for example, movie industry, right? And all kinds of art that, surround us. And there was actually this exception that for art products, you don't have to 100%. I'm not a lawyer, so I may be confusing stuff, but like when you have a work of art, like a movie or like a song or something like that, it doesn't apply there, right? Having said that, putting hard casino gambling on slots in movies for 4-year-olds has you thinking, right? I mean, I know that, knowing the American culture, I know that it's full of it. Gambling is everywhere. Even recently, President Trump and Zelensky were, this huge fight and exchanging thoughts. And there were gambling metaphors everywhere. You don't play your hand like this because it's a weak hand, etc., etc. This is all like gambling. But we wanted to draw our attention and our product design also attention to the fact that if we use explicit language and if we use children appealing stuff, it may be not well received, just because of the fact that. But on the other hand, we weren't really 100% certain that this is the right way to go. It kind of feels like sensible, right? But are there any regulations against that or something? No. So, we could have easily done the explicit thing. But coming back to the fact, anything that you can see that is for kids, just watch out for gambling advertising inside, because it might happen.
Funnily enough. And now, 6 months after the game was launched, you see the numbers, and what's your take on it? What's your perspective? Do you think it was a success, even that you had to resign from certain mechanics or the foul language?
Oh, definitely a success, obviously. I mean, it sounds so corny and cheesy, but yeah, maybe with numbers. You have in online games, sometimes you launch a game and the lifetime of such game would be 2 weeks when it's on top of the main page, and then it really, really starts to decline. There's some really nothing special fruit game or whatever such things, let's be honest, I mean, everybody knows that it's just not. Now, this one was started, and it started to go up after 2 weeks, I guess. People started sending it one to another. Hey, you really need to take a look at this. You really go. So, every now and then you have a special seasonal games, is what we call them, like Christmas game, New Year's game. This year we also made Valentine's game for the first time, and so on. Horse racing as well. This is coming in 2 months. I mean, it's finished. It's just not launched. And so on. So we did an adaptation of this. We did a Christmas thing where then the bobber goes with the bobsled and so on. And, I checked stats this week. It's still, right now, the Christmas game, it's still higher than the normal bobber game, but both of them are still in top 10 of our games, obviously, if I'm not mistaken. So very, very happy with the result. Very, very successful. So for now. And now it's also, we are able to move this to Czech, to Slovakia, Croatia, and so on, like all the Slavic speaking countries. And even if we just leave it in Polish, like everybody's going to look at these guys. We are not exactly sure what they're talking about, but it's kind of like just one word, and it's not even really, really bad word or really, really bad things that he says. It just makes a little bit of noise, so it could be complicated, So yeah, right now, after 6 months, we're really happy.
Yeah, the thing is that we need to remember that we are living in a kind of a fruit games kingdom, and everything that is a fruit game will definitely draw customers, draw attention, etc. And it's really hard for a game that is not a fruit game to to generate such good results as the Bobber did. So like I was also watching because I know you're gonna ask for some numbers later on, but also taking a look at the statistics for the last 6 months, and I saw it was a second game of ours in terms of acquisition of players and in terms of the number of sessions. So like kind of not only the acquisition, but how many times those guys came back. So it's like, given that it's not a fruit game, it's a really big success, It's a kind of the rich animations, meme theme game, which is not a thing actually. So maybe it will be,
I mean, it is now.
Yeah. And on top of that, we had some interest because in iGaming space, we are kind of maybe not like a startup because as a company, we're almost 30 years old, but in the iGaming space, we're pretty new. But thanks to this game, we've also had some interest from, really the big players in the industry who saw the potential, not only in the game, but also like looking at it, you will see that there's a lot of animation work and a lot of like kind of competences in it that made it look the way it looks, So we actually have one contract that is promising to be a really big one thanks to this game. So it's been a really good journey for us.
Nice, right. And if we take a look broadly, not only at Bober, when it comes to the game design, what do you think can have the biggest impact in terms of the engagement?
Oh, well, there's no silver bullet. At least I don't have it, to be honest. It's a combination of everything, obviously. Game logic on one hand and nice thin graphics, something that makes sense. Not just a few fruits thrown together, and a little bit of bells and whistles and you have a game. Sure, I mean, we can do that. That's pretty easy. Just the retention on such games, it's just not there. So new logics, jackpots obviously add a lot to such things, but also that everything is synchronized, that it happens when it needs to happen, and it's still just for one segment of player usually, like really hardcore players will just play 3 real fruits and just wait for that big hit to happen. Such players will probably not play Bobber every day. It's a different thing. It needs to be a little bit for everybody, but obviously, like I said, it's not really. There is no silver bullet to say you do this, and this. Obviously, you need to cover your basics at least and then do that. But maybe this Bobber is also a good example because marketing plays really big part of this, obviously, or the promotion, or in Poland where we are not allowed like promotions, or, there are very strict limits on what you can do. You need to find new ways on how to really push something new, and that it makes a name for itself, so to speak.
Yeah, due to the advertising ban, we have no possibility to do affiliation. So if you read anything online about the Bobber game, it will be, natural traffic. It's not going to be an affiliate writing an article about it. Just put it simple, right? So this is that, that you take a viral and you try to make it another viral and hope that it works. And I also understand the point, and I understand it better every day since I've been working here, that the game not only does it have to be appealing, it needs to be simple enough for many different players, for the mass market to actually consume it. And I'm guessing the big challenge is there with theme games, right? How do you come up with a theme that is intuitive enough for the player to comprehend that this symbol is high and this symbol is low? And it seems that Bober did a really good job there. And sometimes when you walk around, like when you go to ICE or some other conference, I'm not going to badmouth the competition, big kudos to everyone. But sometimes you walk in a room and you see all of those slots of, for example, a movie themed game. You know that the movie's been a big success, but for some reason, the game is not. And the reason for that most of the time is that it's very hard to comprehend. I remember, I'm not going to say the title, but I remember a really super popular TV series with a game based on it, and I just couldn't comprehend it. For me, it was just too complicated, and I'm in the industry. So this is the point that Luka really often that he makes. Maybe he can elaborate on that not only graphics, not only animation, not only richness, but also, being able to comprehend this thing,
I mean, there's two things. In the beginning, you mentioned that you need to kind of distinguish the low symbols from high-paying symbols, for example. So that's the reason the fruit games have almost like 99% of all fruit games will have the same sequence. Like the cherry is the lowest one and the 7 is the highest one. And same goes with what we call royals, so the letters from the cards. And why is that? It's because it's something that you can quickly figure out subconsciously. You don't have to look at what's going on. And I know some people will not agree with me. Some people are like, each symbol needs to be different, and then you just outline the symbol. But it's really not, especially on fruit games or something like that, or games with royals. The spin is like 2 seconds, and if it's empty, the next one. And if you don't see really quickly what's going on, then you're going to stop and take a look. I don't understand it. And that's just a question of symbols. Then you have a question of the game logic and what triggers what and what happens then and so on. Oh, it didn't pay me. Yes, it did. You just don't understand the rule. That the more of such stuff you have in the game, you risk being that the game will not be as popular as it needs to be, and it's not going to be played, and so on and so on. So yeah, there's like a whole science behind it. And not just the symbols. And then you have which colors go together and what is warm and what is not, and what is appealing, what can be here. And you have bigger companies than ours that have people that just study this, just the psychological effect, not even game logic or whatever, just completely different thing, or how the sound will affect the player and so on. And yes, then with that, we can come back to what we initially started to discuss, like where does this ethics of everything that we do begins and end, like could you like hypnotize the players to really get them to just be hooked on your slots and so on, and that it's this legal or not and so on. Most of what we are speaking about, I think in the beginning we spoke about, there is no real legislation of what you can or cannot say, or what if you can use foul language or not. And there's probably a simple reason for that. Like all this stuff is based on technical things, like what you can or cannot do. It's not so much what kind of colors you can or cannot use, or what kind of thing you can or cannot use. That's not really regulated. But I'm sure that we have seen some teams that are really just downright insulting, to be honest. Like we were investigating some Easter team, and you can actually find like a team where there is basically a Jesus and Mary and stuff like that, and this you really need to stay away from, because that's too much. I guess some people thought that they are making a splash with that, but I think it's just too much.
But at the same time, I like the comment that you're making about the simplicity, because it does ring a bell with also what we are delivering. Whenever me and my team were working on the data warehouses, working on any type of reporting, then we always say that the dashboards need to be like jokes. If the recipient doesn't understand, it means it's not funny or not useful. You can translate it into such a statement. And I'm thinking also, because you mentioned the player protection, during the game design process, how many times did you had such situations that you had to step back and resign for specific mechanics, or apply them to a limited context or to a limited scale, due to not only the legislation, but also player protection aspects?
I think this is kind of a natural process, not just for the past 5 years. I mean, past 5 years, all this legislation, let's say GLI, basically, it's pretty clear, it's what you need to kind of figure out is that if you're going to play around with stuff that it's really a no-no, you're going to have a lot of problem with certification. So it's a lot easier to just develop things the way they need to be, because if you just develop games, logics, and so on by GLI standard, that's pretty good. Still, you will have markets where you need to still limit it more in terms of map, maximum wins, but a lot of other stuff that can happen. You can play for this long and then you have to take a break and so on and so on. So if you just do the normal GLI based game, it's okay to start. If you don't do that, then it can be a headache because it's sometimes just easier to just throw it away and do it right.
Okay, I would like to ask you a last one for today. My core is data and analytics, so I have to. How do you guys use data when you're designing games? I'm sure that you are making reference to specific data points, that you do research because every decision needs to be backed with specific information. I'm curious to find out, how does data help you in the whole process, especially when it comes to creating engaging games and maintaining the player protection as well on the same side?
It's a wide subject, maybe for a complete another podcast, but maybe in short. So on one hand, we have data from our games from different markets. Let's say you have financial data. You have, as Maciej mentioned, how many players did a certain title pull, how many new users, players you got, and so on. That's one thing. But you also need to get out of the office, go out on the field, because each market or country will be a bit different. Like you go to Romania, they like simple fruit games and they play that like crazy. But that doesn't really apply to, Latin America, which the story is completely different, and so on. So all this stuff is data for sure. But some data is data that you have in your databases, like terabytes of data from gameplay. And there's another data like speaking to the clients or speaking to the people on that market and so on and so on. And also talking to them. What's good? What's bad? I'm going to give you maybe a bit of an example that might sound strange, but it's really not. For example, we have had a jackpot called Inferno jackpot. Great thing for European markets. Everybody's like, this is hot. This is a lot of money. This is really in the red. This is great. But when you go to Latin America, let's say Costa Rica, start saying Inferno to the older ladies playing the slot machines, so really, they will not touch it. So it's really a stupid example, but it's exactly that.
The data, you know the problem with data because you are the ones trying to solve it. Yeah, like we're just drowning in it. And still, even though I kind of sometimes feel we are drowning in this data, then you kind of have an idea, okay, maybe you need this and maybe you need that. Maybe you need to see where, like, map all the actions that your user is performing on the user interface, or maybe not. Do we invest in it or do we not? It's, as Luka said, it's like we should have a whole new and different conversation about it, but trying to kind of grab this together. We need to, I think to some extent, we need to think about how to unbias the data. So like you have a really good game and for some reason doesn't play on some market, right? So how to find the reasons for it and how to avoid that. And it sometimes comes down to simple things and simple reasons, like you don't have a proper relationship with your B2B customer. That's why they are not positioning it and it doesn't play as a result. But you can see the signs that, for example, the users that actually entered this game stayed for a long period of time and left a lot of money. So the big challenge for us probably is, the bias in the data. And this is something that we really, and it also is coming out of what Luka said, right? You need to go to the field and see the bias and see how it can be really played with, tempered with to some extent, So how we use data, sometimes not enough and sometimes too much, And you get too attached to the raw data and just see, wow, this works. It should also work somewhere else. Just try to know and get the insight why it works.
Maybe another thing, maybe you don't really understand your data in all cases. I mean, you're looking at something, but you don't know what's going on in the market. So you cannot make this connection. That's actually a problem. There was this saying, I think, these startups and so on around San Francisco Bay Area. It's like, get out of the office, People were sitting, playing startups and just coding, but nobody knew. They didn't get any ideas from other people and so on. So once they started these pitches and get out of the office thing, a lot of people got a lot of knowledge. And, we are thinking about this all wrong, actually, There was, I think, another example quickly was this Elon Musk was, I don't know, playing with rockets and there was this YouTuber and he asked him like, but why don't you guys do this? And he's like, oh, wait, sorry. Next time they changed it. And they're all a bunch of geniuses there. He has, I don't know how many geniuses employed. And a simple guy was like, ask a stupid question. Like, yeah, why don't we? You need to understand data.
Exactly. So there's the two angles. One is the quantity and the quantitative data, the numbers that you have, and the other is the qualitative data that you can gather via surveys, via talking to the people, etc. And one cannot do without the other, and the other way around, I would say. Guys, thanks a lot for all those discussions and thoughts. It's really funny that what started as a meme turned into a game. And congratulations on this accomplishment. And I'm keeping fingers crossed for the next viral, hopefully soon.
Hope so. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for the invite. And I hope to see you soon sometime.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And just to wrap up, so today with Maciej and Luka, we have covered the ins and outs of the game design with respect to both engagement and player protection. Guys, stay tuned for more episodes in the upcoming weeks. And that should be it for today. So I'm signing off. And remember, keep rolling with the data.